Okay, I want to start off the math session by talking about letters of recommendations. Essays and personal statements are when you write stories about yourself, but you need to get letters of recommendations, which are other people writing stories about you. So here's some brief guidelines to use. Number one, you should ask 10 different people to write you a letter of recommendation. You're never going to need 10. That's not why you're asking so many people. You're asking 10 people because you're going to ask people that you respect, but you don't necessarily know how they write. And indirectly, their writing is going to be a reflection on you. So if you ask 10 different people, you should get back two, three really good ones that you feel confident saying out to schools as well as scholarship committees. You want a variety. It should be teachers, coaches, if you've had a part-time job, someone that you worked under, if you're heavily involved in your church, maybe a deacon or elder in your church, but people who know you really, really well in different areas of your life. When you ask someone for a letter of recommendation, provide them with a handout with some basic information about you, your accomplishments academically, athletically, your other extracurricular activities, maybe what your goal is, your passions, what you like to study in college if you already know that, and so forth. And you want to include on the handout a deadline that you would like to get it back by September 1st in the fall of your senior year. The reason why you're giving them the handout is twofold. One, for some people it's really hard to write a letter of recommendation and they're not sure what to say. So you're giving them this information to help them out a little bit if they need that help. Now, when I wrote letters of recommendations, I would not have used the handout. But some people, it does give them peace of mind, and they may be more apt to agree to write you one if you give them some information about you. The second reason why you're giving them the handout is because it's got the date on it when it's due, September 1st, which means you need to ask them in the summer before your senior year starts. These are just like your essays and personal statements. People need time to write these. And when you give someone the handout, it's got the information, the deadline date on there, you're showing them that you're really serious about this and it's really important to you, and you're giving them plenty of time to do it correctly. One of the biggest mistakes students make is they will ask teachers during the school year and they'll say, "Oh, Miss Smith, could you write me a letter of recommendation?" They'll say, "Great, when you need it by? Could you have it to me for tomorrow?" The less time you give someone to write one, the lower the quality it will be. If you ask people at the beginning of the summer and they've got all summer to do it, you should get some really good ones back. Review them before they are sent out. This is so important. I had a mom in my church one time show me a copy of a letter of recommendation that was written for her son. And the letter was written by a PE teacher. And I don't really remember what it said about her son, but I remember noticing at least 10 grammar errors. Most of them were punctuation. And so I pointed those out to her and said, "You need to give this back to the teacher and make sure he fixes these before you send these out." And she was horrified because they already went out. See, sometimes as parents and students, we get caught up on the nice things that are being said about the student, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to edit. When I wrote letters of recommendations for students, I told the student, read it thoroughly, have both your parents read it thoroughly, and if you find any mistakes, please let me know, because errors are distracting. And just like I don't remember what the student said, what the teacher said about the student in the example I gave, but I do remember the errors, I wouldn't want my errors to interfere with your students' credentials, credibility, and character. No other person would either. So no one's going to mind you pointing out these mistakes. I will get at least 10 signed copies. Now, for colleges that want letters of recommendations, almost everything is done online. So usually now you just give them the person's email address. They will email the person, and the person has the option of downloading the letter of recommendation or answering a series of questions. But you still want to get at least 10 signed copies, because most likely you're going to be applying for scholarships that are outside the school and outside the colleges and so forth, and most of those are done in still hard copy. So you want to have that to include with scholarship applications. You want to keep copies for the future, because things always seem to come up at the last moments. When I worked in the public schools, it was not uncommon every year for me to have students rush in on a Friday morning. They just found out about a scholarship, or they just decided to apply to this certain school, and the deadline was Friday afternoon to get everything mailed off or whatever, and they needed something right away. That's why you want to keep things on hand, because things always come up. And Even after you graduate from high school, you may be applying for a job in the summer or looking at a grant, internship, even your freshman, sophomore year of college. It's good to have some of these on hand. They don't have to be necessarily super current. If they're 1 or 2 years old, that's good. And it's nice to have around because it's good. Sometimes it can be uplifting when you need it, especially when you're in college. All of you should ask at least 3 teachers, but you need to be very aware of teacher templates. And what do I mean by this? It is not uncommon at most high schools to have a handful of teachers writing most of the letters of recommendations. When I was at Centennial High School, I wrote at least, I want to say 20 every fall, and there were teachers who wrote a lot more than I did. Well, some teachers figure out how to speed up the process because they want to help as many students as possible. So let's say that Jessica comes in and asks me to, one day before school, and asks me to write her a letter recommendation. I say, not a problem, just come to school tomorrow morning, I'll have 10 signed copies for you. Well, she asked me before school, I teach all day. Maybe I coach after school, or I work with students after school, and it's 5 o'clock, I'm tired, I want to go home. But I did promise Jessica I would write her some letters of recommendations. So I get on my computer and I pull up my LOR template, which I have learned from veteran teachers over the years. And in this template, I change the date, I put in Jessica's name, what class I had her in, what her grade was, and I write 2, maybe 3 sentences about Jessica. And then in that template is already 2 other paragraphs, which are the same paragraphs found in any letter of recommendation I write. I read through them quickly, they're very vague, but I want to make sure that the pronouns match Jessica's gender. The letter of recommendation ends up being about a half page, maybe a little longer. I print out 10 copies, I sign them for Jessica. The next morning she comes into school, I give her the 10 signed copies. She's happy because she thinks I've helped her. And honestly, I think I've helped her too. But unfortunately, unwittingly, what I've done for Jessica is nothing. When colleges get letters of recommendations that are short and very vague, it doesn't do anything. In fact, some schools are so good that when they recognize those, they don't even read them. If a school wants a letter recommendation, if a scholarship committee wants a letter recommendation, they're trying to learn something about the student. So in the general section of your ACT Prep binder, turn to page 5, and turn to page 6, and you've got a copy of a letter of recommendation. I'm going to read through this, and I want you to follow along as I'm reading this, because there's a reason why I gave you this one specifically. Fall of 2000 whatever, to whom it may concern. I had the pleasure of having Champaign Centennial High School senior blank in my Algebra 2 class last year. During my 10 years of teaching, I have never had a student demonstrate so much perseverance and determination in overcoming both test and math anxiety as Lexi did in Algebra 2. Lexi struggled through the basic algebra review unit from the first day of math class last year. After 4 weeks of poor performance, I recommended to her that she transfer to a low-level math course. She was determined not to transfer, however. I told her that in order to succeed in algebra, she would need to come in before school for help on a daily basis until she caught up with the rest of the class. This was a problem for Lexi because she was a swimmer who practiced before school. Lexi therefore faced a major choice: transfer to a low-level math class or quit swimming in order to come in for help. In spite of her love for the sport, Lexi quit swimming and began coming to school 30 minutes early in order to face the challenge of mastering algebra. Lexi pulled her grade from a 35% up to a 72% by the end of the semester. Although she struggled throughout the fall semester, she continued to progress as she learned to enjoy math. Furthermore, she overcame her fear of taking tests, learned to prepare for them, and developed strategies to be more efficient at taking tests. She also displayed her maturity by reviewing tests and learning from her mistakes rather than allowing temporary failures to stop her from achieving her goals. At the end of the fall semester, in spite of her success, I recommend to Lexi once again that she transfer to a lower-level math class for the spring semester. The second semester of Algebra 2 is much harder than the fall semester, and I was not sure Lexi could keep up with the pace. I was wrong. Not only did Lexi keep up, but she surpassed her fall semester performance and earned an 83% for the spring semester. Even more amazing than her eventual success was the fact that her perseverance and commitment testified to both her character and potential for success. She came in for help before school, 30 minutes early, over 100 days during the school year. This year, Lexi is the captain of the school swim team. When the team is not practicing in the morning, Lexi still comes in for help from her trigonometry teacher. This young lady, who I thought could not handle Algebra 2, came to my room the other day and told me she earned an 89% B+ on her first trigonometry test. Lexi's successes have taught me to never question the power of human potential to learn, especially when a student is willing to commit and dedicate herself like Lexi did. Obviously, Lexi is the type of student who will enhance the educational atmosphere wherever she is. The restrictions of time and space inherent in a recommendation letter prevent me from even scratching the surface about the potential of this remarkable young lady. Please contact me if you wish additional information. Now, hopefully you followed along. You heard me read it. That's definitely not a form letter. I knew Lexi. Anyone who read this would know I knew Lexi and could contact me if they wanted more information about Lexi. This is what they're looking for. Now, the second reason why I gave you this one was because she wasn't an A student in my class. She was failing miserably in my class. She had to make a choice between swimming and school. She chose school. What a novel concept. She put school before sports. And because of that, she got her grade up to a low C. And in the second semester, she got a low B, but she wasn't a star student. Colleges don't need to hear how great you are. What they want to hear is how you've overcome obstacles, how you dealt with challenges. And this letter demonstrates that Lexi had a big challenge in front of her, and she overcame it. There's nothing wrong with asking a teacher where you're the star student or the coach where you're the star athlete. But I want you to think about this. What could they say? I had students in my classes who were star students who would ask me to write letters of recommendations, and I would have to turn them down and say, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't have anything to write. And sometimes they got upset. It's like, I don't understand. I thought you liked me. I did so good in your class. And I said, that's not the issue. You were a great student, but I never saw you before school or after school. I only saw you in class. See, I could write this for Lexi because she did come in before school over 100 days because I kept attendance of who came in before and after school. I watched the girl cry. I watched the girl struggle. That's how I learned about the whole swimming decision, because she shared those things with me. I watched her overcome. This is why coaches can write really good ones, because they see you outside the school day. That's why if you're involved in music or drama, that supervisor can write really good ones because they see you outside of the school day. It's pretty hard for teachers to write some of these if they only see you in the class for 45, 50 minutes every day with 25, 26, 27 other students. That's the challenge. This is why you're asking 10 different people to find out who really knows you, knows something about you that they can share. So you've got a copy of this to give you a good idea of what colleges are really, really looking for. So hopefully that helps you in regards to getting really good letters or recommendations from people that you respect.